Cool. So I was wondering if you could just introduce yourself, tell us your name, pronouns, where you live, what you do, what you like.
Yeah. So my name's Nebal Maysaud. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. I'm a composer, and I live in the Washington, D.C. area, specifically Alexandria, Virginia. Um, and yeah, I, I specialize in, I guess, uh, primarily bringing together influences of Middle Eastern music um, into whatever genres I'm working with.
Okay, awesome. Is there a genre of music that you feel like you specialize in or you prefer to write in?
Not really. Other than Arabic music, uh, I I really don't like being put into any sort of label.
Okay.
Um, and anytime I try to end up, trying to fit into one thing, it usually turns out to not be that at all. And I'm more interested in creating kind of new experiences by bringing together elements of different genres.
Okay. Okay. Do you have a piece that you've written that maybe people can listen to that you feel like exhibits that the best?
Yeah. Um, Decolonized arabesques
Okay.
is probably the best one.
Yeah, I was
Uh,
listening to that the other day, and I was like, this is really cool. And I mean, since you brought that up, I was wondering, could you maybe say more about how you came to the title, especially? Of course, like the musical content as well, but especially the title. I think for people who are in the classical music world, that title can be a little interesting. Like,
yeah,
so.
yeah. So I don't know. I just always liked the fact that arabesque had the word Arab in it. Um, and and so the way this piece came about was the commissioner was a good friend of mine, and we both share this experience of being second generation immigrants. Um, and one and he's a pianist. And one thing that I found very interesting that I wanted to explore was the difference between the pianist and the other instruments, bass, viola, and saxophone, and how the instruments could play the microtones that are present in Arabic music, while the piano could not. So I started with that uh, kind of tension there. Um, and um, yeah, the part of it came from the title just came from my Twitter handle, which is post rhythmic arabesque.
Okay.
Um, and the word post rhythmic comes from the contemporary composer bullshit emulator. Uh, which is this like tool that just you know creates a program notes for a contemporary composer, and it's um, complete nonsense, but it sounds like it could be real.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
So
look at this.
yeah. Uh, so it came. I did that, and it came up with the word post rhythmic. So I decided I was like, I'm just gonna call myself post rhythmic arabesque. And then as I was trying to come up with the title for this piece, I was like, I initially thought that decolonized arabesques would be kind of. I didn't like it at first.
Okay.
But then when I told Ethan, the commissioner, about it, it was like, oh no, you have to name it that. Um, yeah, so it's a combination of kind of the point of the piece is like trying to decolonize um, the experience of being second generation immigrant,
Hmm.
combined with my Twitter handle.
I think that's super super cool. So I think whenever I see something and the word kind of like decolonized or any of these kinds of words are used, I feel like that person is usually really thinking or like super socially forward or social justice warrior or something like that.
Mhm.
Um, or maybe they don't consider themselves that, but their work maybe addresses some of those things. And I was kind of curious as to if you feel like your work as a composer addresses those things, and or do you consider yourself to be an activist or an advocate, especially because you're also a writer
Yeah.
and you've written for New Music Box and you have this great blog and all of that. So
Yeah. I don't consider myself an activist. I don't really do stuff like community organizing, or um, I'm not really in the front lines. So I don't think it would be appropriate to call myself an activist. Uh, uh, but yeah, I do try with my music and my writing. I do. My main goal is to find an avenue for healing.
okay.
Um, and um, what do I need to heal myself from? Well, it's trauma, and what kind of trauma? It's racialized trauma, racialized and gendered, and all sorts of elements of my identity that uh, have violence inflicted on it. Uh, so that's kind of the angle where I'm coming from with my music and with my writing. Is it's kind of just almost selfishly starting with myself, um, and trying to think, okay, what kind of artwork do I need to create for myself so that I can live another day? And then hopefully the artwork communicates to other people too and does the same thing for others.
Mm-hmm. That's I think that's really beautiful.
Thank you.
Have you received any kind of feedback as to from other people about kind of this healing and um, healing from trauma, different types of trauma, and through music?
Yeah.
Music, yeah.
You know, I I don't know if many people really talk about the effect of healing as trauma. I do get a lot of good feedback from other people of color, um, who say that a piece or more recently my writing has touched them, and it explores experiences that they relate to. So I'm very proud of myself for that, for being able to connect with others, and help others get more clarity on the situation they're in. Because sometimes you do need to find like a piece of art that shows what you're going through, to get a better understanding of where you are. Um, so I have gotten really good feedback on that, from other people who, my music or my writing might not be speaking to. You know, they'll give me feedback, uh, but I find that usually, for folks who don't need that healing, they don't see my artwork as something that is focused on healing.
Okay.
Um,
Right.
yeah, like for example, my you know articles on the Music Box. Um, I was approaching those from the standpoint of love for my community. But you know, the a lot of people have told me it's like you didn't pack any punches. It was a very they considered it a very not violent but aggressive, um, an
Okay.
aggressive work. And in some ways, yeah, it does require some boldness to speak with clarity on what's going on. Um, but I found that a lot of people tend to focus on that aggressiveness, um, or seeing boldness and confidence as aggressiveness. And for some folks, that makes them uncomfortable. But for them, I don't think they recognize it as even being healing at all.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. For them, it's just another something they're listening to, and they have some kind of critical something to say about it.
Yeah.
Reading. Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that, I guess, kind of moving more to your process in composing, do you have a formal process that you approach, or does it just come to you in the middle of the night? I'm always really curious about people who write music, how their process.
Yeah. So I usually plunk on my keyboard for inspiration. That's usually where I start, or I just listen to a lot of music, and you know, explore what sticks with me and try to take elements of that. Um, but I don't really have a set process right now, although I'm in the process of uh, trying to create it.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, now that I work in marketing,
Okay.
and it's one thing we do is graphic design, and um, we have this process of research, discovery, and drafting that includes like 3 rounds of internal drafting with an editor, and 3 rounds with the client. And I've been thinking, it was like, well, what if I take this kind of thorough process and do it with my clients? So I know that's not at all what I did with you, but but I'm hoping that with this new process, I'm able to create, good music more efficiently, and also, be better able to meet deadlines and, be more organized and bring in the commissioner at every step.
Okay. That's great.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So I know that you've written for guitar before, for the pieces that you wrote for me. Could you maybe share what you love about a guitar, what you hate about it, what makes it difficult from a composer standpoint? Because I've talked to a fair amount of people who, when you say, I really want to work with you on a guitar piece, they're like, oh no, not guitar. Can't do that. So I was just wondering, from your perspective, I mean, because you end up writing for a lot of instruments that you don't play.
Mm-hmm.
So, and which is fascinating to me. So yeah, what do you love or hate about guitar?
Yeah. It's kind of all like the same thing, which is understanding fingerings.
Right.
I both kind of love it because it requires you to think a little bit differently than you would for other instruments, and that's what makes the guitar unique. And it forces you to write in a certain way that I'm not used to writing. And yeah, I do love the timbre of the guitar, and all the different timbral possibilities. Like the acoustic guitar sounds gorgeous by itself, but also with electric guitar, the sky's the limit.
Right.
You can pretty much get to any sound you want out of that. And that's also something, not that I don't like, but it's a bit daunting to me, is well, okay, if the sky's the limit, what do I pick? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you could pick literally any sound, and it could probably be made on guitar.
Yeah. But then also thinking, it was like, okay, if I want this kind of sound, what are the logistics of it? What tools do they need? What kind of pedals we have to use, and what settings do I need to put on it, and so it requires a lot of learning too, which is also like very exciting.
Oh, okay, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Can you talk about a little bit about the pieces that you wrote for me that I'm going to play in a couple weeks, I guess? Yeah.
Yeah. So #brown noise. That and it's kind of, you know, my exploration of both Arabic music and microtones on the guitar and different ways they can be treated. So the first movement is kind of dysphoric looping mess, and that was me really thinking it was like my appreciation for the new levels of harmonic dissonance you get with microtones, and that's kind of like you know, being just an unapologetic boldness, while but also within it you can hear sort of like these nice melodies that are just kind of stacking on top of each other. And the second movement takes it the completely opposite direction. You know, the first movement was probably exploring just how full and dissonant you can get, whereas the second movement it's a traditional samai, and it's really exploring the melodic capabilities that you get in exploring maqamat through the guitar. And maqamat are sort of like Arabic scales, or really they're like Arabic modes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the third movement is also exploring that same thing, but more exploring the rhythm and kind of combining the two. And the third movement doesn't use microtones, but it's in ajam, which is kind of the same thing as major.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, it's but still exploring from a Middle Eastern perspective, harmony and melody on the guitar.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a super cool process to learn. So I'm really excited to bring it to people, and I hope they really enjoy it, because I mean I really enjoy playing it, and working with
Awesome.
really enjoyable. So yeah, I appreciate that. Is there anything else about the guitar or about composing in general you just want to share? Or do you, or I have a question, and if you have an answer for it, it's okay. But do you have a favorite guitar piece? Something that inspires your guitar writing, or just inspires you musically?
That's a good question. You know, I don't know if I have a favorite guitar piece, but because I'll admit I don't listen. I do listen to guitar music, but I don't bother learning the composers and the pieces, which is a big no-no on my part. I do love the similarities it has to the oud, which is an instrument that I really want to learn. And I do just and yeah, and you know, samai for the oud, you can just like sort of look online, and you know, the cool thing about Arabic music is that it can be played on one instrument or it can be played on 20. So I guess I don't really have an answer, but I guess my favorite type of guitar would be the oud.
Cool. Yeah, I like that. we'll have to do like a hashtag brown noise part 2.
Oh
And
yeah.
we'll do a guitar and oud once you learn it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of all I have for you today. I really appreciate you talking to me, taking the time, share with us about, the piece and the piece you wrote for me, and also just your process and who you are as a person. I think it's really interesting to be able to talk to people about the music they write. And so I'm going to keep doing this with people and want to work with you again, of course, and all that good stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks. And yeah, it's such a great pleasure working with you.
Yeah.